Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Tonight we are going to take a look at Ravage Dungeons of Plunder. So I have the game set up here. This is my second or third or fourth time playing the game. I'm playing a two-player or two-hero solo game. And as you can see, the game comes with quite a bit of stuff, and it's pretty good quality stuff. The cards are pretty nice. They are linen finished, or I guess they're a slight linen finish. They feel good. They were a little warped in the bag or in the box, but they've got a nice feel to it, good color. One thing I really do like about this game is the color. It really does look good on the table. But maybe we should back up a little bit. So Ravage Dungeons of Plunder was a Kickstarter game that I did not kickstart. I did not back this. Something about it during the campaign just kind of, it didn't grab me. And I'm not sure why I had that feeling, but after playing it, I understand why I had that feeling. It's kind of a weird game. It suggests that it's kind of a reverse dungeon crawl where you play as the orcs defending their dungeon or against the heroes, but it's really not like that. It's not like a a village attacks. It's not a tower defense game. You really are just playing orc heroes in a dungeon, going through the dungeon, fighting monsters, fighting boss monsters, which just so happen to be heroes. So instead of kind of like, you have heroes, they're kind of like elite monsters. And then you also have some bosses. So they're really, besides theme, the story, who you're playing, there really isn't that much of a difference between this and any other dungeon crawl. You're still doing the exact same things. Just because you're playing as the orcs, as the quote-unquote baddies, it doesn't really mean that you're doing anything substantially different in the game. So let's just go through kind of like what you have. So you have delve cards. These are the cards you draw when you're actually exploring the dungeon, and each of the quests or missions tells you how to set up this deck in a certain way with certain cards, because you will come across special rooms, and then you will have to put together those rooms with these cards. Now the dungeon cards are just cards, and that can lead to a little bit of fiddliness with how they go together. They're very easy to bump, so you're not really going to have, they do create some very interesting dungeons, some layouts, and it's all random, and by the time you're done, you could end up with a very cool looking thing. However, it is very fiddly in more than one way, more than just sliding around. Just when you put the tiles together, you kind of have to overlap them, or else you will be stuck with these weird little in-between spaces that aren't really spaces. So it is a little weird, but I do like the system. And so then you have these Seek Glory cards. Now this is the deck that drives all the adventure. So these are all the things you're going to encounter. Now it looks like a lot, and it is a lot. However, these are basically just monsters and different, with different numbers. So you can keep track of who's like a 1/, a 2/, a 3/. So here's like a 2/ and a 3/ devil. And the 3/ is a little bit more powerful, as you can see. So the 2/ attacks with a purple die and blocks with a purple die. And the level 3 attacks with a purple and a blue and blocks with 2 blue. So you do get some variety in how strong the monsters are. Now the trap cards that you're going to find, they all have the same picture of just the trap die. I wish that there was actually a picture of the trap. That it seems a little bit like that was like placeholder art that they left in. I don't know. It's a little weird, but overall, I do like the art. I like the feel of the cards. And I do like that you get quite a bit. I wish there were maybe some non-combat encounters. That would be, I always like non-combat encounters in my randomness. And then let's see, you also have a deck of Sneaky Goblin cards. So the Sneaky Goblin is a guy that you can visit, and he sells things. He sells traps for you to use against the monsters and heroes, and trinkets to use. Again, there's not a ton of variety. There's a few items in here. The items that are in here have cool art. I would have liked to have seen more stuff. You have a stack of cards here that the heroes, the guys you are fighting, and the bosses use. You have some boss cards, so you can fight different bosses. Really nice art on these boss cards. I like that a lot. And then you have some Summon Undead cards. These are for one of the orc guys that you will be playing, that you can summon different minions to help you. It does come with some nice sequence of play cards, some information cards, quite a few little tokens, and a bunch of standees. I have to give props to this game for using standees with nice art. I will always take a standee over a mini because a standee with good art and color will always look better than a non-painted mini. And I do not have the time in my life to be painting hundreds of minis. I have hundreds of minis and I will never ever have them all painted. And that is just a shame. I wish more games would go the standee route. So overall, component-wise, I think this game is pretty good. Unfortunately, I think that's about all of the good things I can say about it. So on a turn, what you do is, well, let's go back. So here's the rule book. The rule book is actually pretty light. The main rules are only about, let's see here, 7 pages. Or actually 9 pages. So after I finished reading them, I was like, wow, this game actually seems pretty simple. And then the rest of the pages, you have a bunch of different quests. You have, let's see, 1, 2 through 10 different quests, I believe, 11 different quests. You have a couple alternate game modes, so you can play fully solo with only 1 orc hero. You can play cooperatively with up to 4, and that's mainly how I've played, with 2 orc heroes. Or you can also play a competitive mode and also a mode with a dungeon master or an overlord. I can't speak for any of those other modes. I have not played them. And as I was reading the instructions and looking at the components, I realized that there was quite a few things that were never mentioned. And that's because they are all the details are in these back couple of pages as an appendix in alphabetical order. And that's okay. I kind of like that, where like the nitty-gritty stuff you can look up, but it's also just a little off-putting while you're reading the rule book. It's like, well, what does that do? Then you have to go and find it in the back. But when I started playing the game, I realized how much stuff is not mentioned at all in this book. It is insane. I don't know how this game came to market. I have to imagine, and I know this probably isn't true, and it's probably not fair of me to imagine this, but I have to imagine that nobody but the creator read this rulebook, that the main developer never actually said to somebody who had never played this game, here, take this rulebook, take all this stuff, set it up, and play the game, and I'll get back to you to see how it went. Because there's, okay, so first of all, on a main game, what you do is, the first thing you do is you delve, and that means you explore. And so there's certain criteria that dictate whether you can explore or not. and you draw a delve card and you put it on the board if it matches, if you meet that criteria, and then you set up a monster or a Seek Glory card. You draw a Seek Glory card, and if it's a monster, you place it on there. Okay, that's fine. So that's the first step. Well, that's actually 2 steps: delve and then seek glory. So you explore the dungeon, you create the dungeon, and then you populate the newly created tile with bad stuff, with stuff to fight. Both of those, like, perfect, no problems. But then you get to the meat of the game, and that's the Ravage stage. And that says perform 2 actions. So one of the actions you can perform is movement. Nowhere in the manual does it say whether you can move diagonally or just orthogonally. So that's a huge thing. It just says every hero or every orc can move up to 4 spaces. Well, the developer went onto a BGG and said, yes, you can move diagonally. That was not in the book. The next thing you can do is you can attack. So if you look at your, as an action, you get 2 actions. So if you look at your hero, you get to attack, and that's with 2 blue dice. So attacking and defending is pretty easy in the game. You roll your dice to attack, and you look at the swords, and then the monster will roll to defend whatever they defend with. So I do 2 hits. He defends with no swords, so I would do 2 hits to the monster. These represent energy. So you have energy and hits. So blue dice are the weakest. Purple have more attacks, and the number 1 attack die is the black die here. Nice dice, custom die. I like that. They feel good. So, but then in addition to the attack, you have these cards here, and you're told to pick 5 of them when you create your character, your hero orc. And each one of these cards takes a certain amount of energy to use, and you gain energy by rolling the energy symbol, so you can go up in energy. I like that system. Every time you use energy, for every point of energy you use, you get a point of experience. I like that. So the more abilities you use, the more experience you get. You can change that experience in to upgrade an ability. Every time it reaches level 4, you go back to 0, and then you get to upgrade an ability to its level 2 ability. However, nowhere on this card or nowhere in the book does it tell you if these are an action. So your actions you have are move, attack, search for plunder, pick up an item, trade an item, or blood tribute. Well, what about these? So I can attack by spending an action, but then I also have an attack here, which is a crude carving, which lets me have a blue die. So if I spend 1 point of energy, I get to roll 1 blue die. Or if I use an action, I get 2 blue dice to attack. Well, you can actually combine those things. And according to the developer on BGG, these always count as an action to use. But that is never mentioned in the book. And as a matter of fact, this is probably kind of like the meat of the whole game, is how the cards you pick to symbolize your hero. All of those cards, first of all, they're not detailed in the book at all. And the only thing you get is just this little tiny paragraph about using them. Hero skill cards. You get this much in the whole book about using them. It says if you spend energy to use your weapons or spells, add the dice listed on the card to your hero's base melee dice. You may only use 1 weapon or spell at a time unless otherwise stated on the card. Designate each weapon or skill you will use before each round of combat. But it never mentions like if those count as an action. Some of the cards work in tandem, so you have to use one, or you have to use both of them together. So does that count as 2 actions? Or is that 1 action followed up by another action? Is it, if you use them together, is it 1 action? there's just so much. In playing this game, it feels like a really simple game. It should be a really simple game, but the rules are, there's so much missing from the rule book about the core concepts of the game. This happens way too often in Kickstarter games, and I'm not sure how it happens, because anybody reading this rule book would have found that, okay, so how do you move? Can I move in all directions or just orthogonally? Can I move diagonally? I don't know. The very first quest. Let's look at that. The very first quest in the book. So this is like the tutorial. It says, collect all the treasure and escape the dungeon. Well, guess what? Nowhere in the rulebook does it tell you how to escape the dungeon. It's like, what? The very first quest in the game. On BGG, of course, you can go and you can find out that to escape the dungeon, you have to get back to the start tile, and on your next turn, you can escape. But how that very important detail about beating the tutorial quest in the book is, or in the manual, is not mentioned anywhere in the rule book is absolute insanity. And there just seems to be a ton of stuff like that. So in a better written rule book, in a better game, all of these cards would be detailed. It would tell you exactly how to use them, when you can use them. And then some of them also seem really weirdly powered. Like this one costs 3 energy to use. Okay, your max energy is 6. So that's half of your max energy if you fill that up. For 1 purple die, that's going to give you the max at 2 hits. Even like the weakest monsters block with, like a level 2 blocks with the same die. This hero blocks with 2 blue die. So the chances of, it just seems like the economy, the energy economy, is really poorly thought out in this game. It's a real shame, because we don't get games this colorful, this vibrant very often in this genre. This genre seems to be filled with games that are, you know, darker and grittier. So I love the look of this game. I think it has some interesting ideas, and I like how the dungeon is laid out randomly. I like that there are random encounters, but there's so much frustration for me in just figuring out how to play what is, at its core, a not complex game. It's a very simple game. And there's lots of little things, like these XP trackers. Well, they're too big to actually fit. So like if you've got this going on and then you slide your energy, you're constantly knocking. I don't know. I feel bad about picking on this game so much, but I didn't back it when it first came out, and a couple people taught on the this Facebook group I'm a part of, the Dungeon Crawl and Adventure board game group, were playing it. They really liked it. So actually, that sounds pretty cool. So I went ahead and purchased it, and I'm definitely not going to keep this game. I cannot recommend it right now. Maybe if a second edition comes out. Maybe if some expansions come out where the developer fixes some of the ambiguities in the rulebook. There's too many little things that keep me from really liking this game, even though there are also some things that I do like about it. Just I can't imagine having to explain this game to somebody, because as you explain a game, the more things you have to say. Well, this isn't in the rule book. This is on BGG. This isn't on the sequence of play card. All of your little power cards, they are an action. The more things you have, the more errata you have to explain to people who may not be as fully invested in the game as you are. The smaller a chance that they will want to play the game again, because it just kind of feels like, well, is this we playing by the official rules, or is this a bunch of house rules? You know, who said that these things do this? Who said you can move this way and that way? Who said what escaping the dungeon is? So yeah, unfortunately, I got to give a big pass to Ravage Dungeons of Plunder. Even though it looks great on the table, even though it has a lot of cool stuff, it's just, there's too much that prevents me from having a good time with this game. So, all right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and hopefully the next game and the next thing we get on the table will be a little bit more positive. So, all right, take it easy, guys. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.